All right, Jesse on fire. Welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about this Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou situation. They just got into it on Twitter, and that is a brilliant play from everybody involved. There's a lot more to this situation, though, because, and I will just apologize on the front end, I have a lot going on in my life right now, okay? I'm moving from California to Texas, basically against my will. Now, I'm excited to move to Texas, but we got forced out of California. That's a whole other thing. I'm going to do a video on it, Jesse on everything about it later. It's worth talking about. But as far as, you know, uploads, everything will even out in a few weeks, but right now I am up to my eyeballs. But nonetheless, my point is that I missed making the video after Jon Jones fired his management team, and we're going to talk about that because there was this whole situation that happened right there, and I didn't hear any commentators comment on it, and I'm like, how? I mean, this seems pretty obvious to me that this thing that happened is involved with that, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. So anyway, I'm gonna lay that out, and I'll tell you what, we'll make that the deal for new viewers if you've never been to this channel. If as it relates to Jon Jones firing his management team, if I bring up the what I believe to be the reason for that, and you go, wow, that's pretty good insight, then you have to subscribe to the channel. That's the deal. All right, and we're gonna do that right now. So. And everybody else, thank you guys for continuing to like and comment on the videos. I have an incredible ratio of likes and comments, and I owe that to you guys. Much appreciated. Keep it up. Thank you. So yeah. So we're going to talk about the Francis and Jon thing on Twitter, but first I'm going to talk about Jon firing his management team because it's directly related to this. Because ultimately, what are these guys doing, right? Why are Francis and Jon arguing on Twitter? Right. And I mean, I'll get into exactly what they said. But the reason they're not arguing on Twitter because they don't like each other. They're not arguing on Twitter because they don't respect each other. Those guys, you've seen them in pictures together. OK, I know with like MMA fans, this is a really hard thing for some people to like go, OK, they're doing this now. Why what incentive would they have to do this? You know, given this information that I already have, could this maybe be like a show? Like, could this be a show? You know, because over here before, when they were in different weight classes, they're like smiling and hugging and taking pictures together. And now when they have a potential fight, they're arguing on Twitter. Like, I mean, which is more likely, that they have a lot of respect for each other like they did over here, or that now they actually hate each other? You know, I mean, this is a tactic that's very, very smart. Now, I'm not saying any of this is not real. Okay. I'm not saying that at all, because these guys really do want to fight. I mean, these guys are definitely now in a different sector where they're competitive with each other and they definitely want to fight. And so it's not like this is just fabricated. They're doing the right thing, and they're being kind of relatively respectful also. But they're doing what they have to do to get the fight done. And so let's go back to the thing that I was just talking about, right? So when Jon Jones fired first round management, okay, everyone was like, oh my gosh, Jon fired first round. And guess what? So someone said that to me, and I immediately sent it to Eric Nixick, Francis's coach, and he hadn't seen it yet. So I may have been the one who was the line of information to Francis, you know, because if Eric hadn't seen it, I bet you Francis hadn't. So I'm just saying, I'm super important. Not really. He would have found out 10 seconds later. But nonetheless, it was pretty cool. I was like, hey, just because this is going to have a huge impact on your bank account, I'm not sure if you've seen this yet. So anyway, I felt special and I felt more involved than I actually am. But I'm sharing that with you guys. So anyway, so here's the deal. So the weekend before that, right? So that happened like, I don't know, midweek or whatever. The weekend before that was when Dana was at the press conference after the fights, and they asked him, hey, so there was a report that came out, Dana, saying that Jon Jones asked for $30 million guaranteed, and Jon Jones is denying that. And Dana was like, oh, he denied that? And so you had this thing where a report comes out, Jon Jones wants $30 million guaranteed, and the UFC rejected it. Jon Jones goes public and denies it. He's like, that's not true. I didn't ask for $30 million. The last thing that he had said publicly about money was he said 10 to 12 seems low. That's what he said, right? Then the UFC came and they still didn't come to a deal. UFC comes out and says he's asking for $30 million, and he goes, I didn't ask for $30 million. Dana in the press conference goes, yeah, he did. Jon Jones actually looking at Dana, sees him say, yeah, you did. And then 2 days later, Jon Jones fires his management team. Okay. So listen, do I need to connect those dots for you? Right? Because ultimately, why do you have a management team? They're doing your negotiating for you. Like, that's why you have them. What other purpose could they serve? They're managing your contracts, they're giving you advice on your career, and they're negotiating with the UFC. And you know, one thing that I saw on John McCarthy and Josh Thompson's podcast that they were just talking about was, when you get to Jon Jones level, you don't need a manager. That's true. I mean, it depends on who you are, obviously. Like, it depends on who you are. But in Jon Jones's case, I do agree. Like, I don't think he needs a manager. He's a really smart guy. Like, he makes bad decisions. He makes bad, impulsive decisions, but he's a really smart guy, you know? And he could certainly manage himself. But the bottom line, as it relates to those data points, is that very much appears like Jon Jones didn't know that his management team had demanded $30 million guaranteed. And then he got humiliated publicly because he's like, wait, you guys are making moves like that? Like, I trust you guys to do that, but that's completely unreasonable. You asked for $30 million guaranteed. I'm trying to get this fight done. We've been trying to get this fight done for how long? Because think about this, dude. Okay? How long has Jon Jones been trying to get this Francis Ngannou fight? People are acting like, oh yeah, it's just now since Francis became the champion. No. What he said he was going up to heavyweight how long ago? And he said, I'll fight Francis, but I want more money. How long ago? He's been trying to get the Francis Ngannou fight forever, dude. Forever. Right? And his first round management team, they can't get a deal done. If I was Jon, I'd be like, okay, guys, like, if I would be getting very, very frustrated. And you know, they're probably telling him, just give it some time. We got it. We're gonna drive it up. We're gonna drive it up. And you know, I mean, look, like, if these guys don't have a lot of MMA fighters that are getting big paydays. They got George Masvidal and Jon, and so like they're looking at it like I would imagine that they're counting their own money, right? Like, if they get, let's say they get 5%, okay, and it might be even more than that, but let's say they get 5%, which is what I actually would have assumed it was 10, but Josh Thompson said 5 on first round. I'm sorry, on whatever, John McCarthy and Josh Thompson's podcast. So let's say it's 5. So if they're asking for, if Jon gets 15 million, right? He gets 15 million. So cool. That's $750K for them if they're getting 5%. Now, which sounds better, 750K or 1.5 million? If they get them 30 million, then they get 1.5 million. And so they might just be counting their own money. And they're like, man, we can get it into 7 figures if we get this, instead of looking at it like, is this objectively? And then here, I'm just completely speculating, but 30 million is an unreasonable number to ask for right now. I mean, because seriously, like, the bottom line is, like, the UFC at least does have a structure by which they pay fighters that if I was running my business, if my business was the UFC, and I would run it that way as well. Okay. Like, the reason that boxing, how Bob Arum, my favorite thing ever, he's like, how much money I've lost on this guy, Terrence Crawford. You know why? Is because boxers get these gigantic guaranteed contracts, right? Why? Like, UFC's smart the way they do it. Now, I'm not getting into whether the percentages are fair, but basing the bulk of the main fighters' pay on the number of pay-per-views that get sold, that's a no-brainer, right? Because then you're taking less risk as an organization. You're paying out money that comes in as opposed to allocating cost and then hoping that you cover, right? So a 30 million guaranteed number is ludicrous. I mean, if they really asked for that, then I would have fired him too, regardless of any other thing. 30 million, it's like, that's not how the UFC structures their deals, Like, oh, we'll take this much of a pay-per-view with a $30 million guarantee. And here's the thing. Here's one thing that if that is true, that it might say, is George Masvidal must have made an enormous amount of money for the Kamaru Usman fight, because these guys managed him for that. And he said he got paid big. Like, if they're asking for Jon Jones to get guaranteed 30, that would have to be in some form of relativity to what George Masvidal got for that fight. I mean, I don't think it was close to 30, but I mean, otherwise, how are they gorilla mathing their way to 30 million? Anyway, it's neither here nor there, but I think that's what happened. I think that's why he finally fired them, was because he didn't even know that they had asked for 30, and he was like, dude, what are these guys doing? I've been trying to get this fight for 18 months. I'm done with you guys, So that's that. Now, as far as their Twitter beef, this is really, really smart, This is really, really smart. And I'm probably going to be reading these out of order because I'm reading them in an article, but so Jon Jones says, motivate me more, Francis. And listen, let me say something about that. I do agree. That is the main reason I am most excited for this fight, is because Jon Jones, you pull some of the mistakes he's made, and especially the picograms thing out, he is the GOAT, man. I mean, he just is, right? Like, he just is. If you pull that stuff out, you pulled all the mistakes, you pull the juice out, I don't even think there's much of an argument there, right? I realize he's had some lackluster wins in his last couple fights, but that's the whole point about motivate me, Francis, is because he's bored, man. He's bored. And so him fully motivated the biggest, like you're literally putting the biggest challenge of his entire career ahead of him when theoretically he should still be pretty close to his prime, you know? And it's a gigantic challenge. I mean, how could anyone not want, I mean, if anybody does not buy this pay-per-view when it happens is out of their mind, right? So he says, motivate me more, Francis. And Francis says, I shouldn't have to motivate you, Johnny. If it's not in you already, you've already lost. I know my motivation. And he's got the earth. Then Johnny Bones, pray you knock me out, because if you don't, I'm going to break you. That's a promise, Francis. And Francis goes, please don't make me laugh. When is the last time you broke somebody? Wait. Oh, this is, okay. I was wondering, like, is this Francis actually writing this? Because one of them sounded a little not Francis-y. And you know what? I love this, dude. So here's the thing. You guys know I can tell you objectively that almost every single celebrity fighter or athlete has someone that manages their social media, because they don't have time to be on there, you know, doing. There's so much upside in having a big social media platform, but these guys don't have time to just sit there and do the things that you need to do to really promote yourself on here. So like, here's what I would tell you. So this one, I shouldn't have to motivate you, Johnny, ... If it's not in you already, you've already lost. I know my motivation. Okay, so he called him Johnny, number one. That's a giveaway. It's not Francis. And then he did the ... So people who do ... which is, I do that, they do it all the time. So I'm going to read through this, and I'm going to try to gauge which ones are Francis and which ones are these other guy. And if you see a ... my guess is that's going to be one of the giveaways. But because on the second one, this one is Francis, because it sounds like Francis is, please don't make me laugh. When is the last time that you break somebody out? Right? That sounds like Francis. And then Francis says, you're a decision fighter, Johnny Bones, and you've barely won a fight lately, but you're going to break me out. Wait. Okay, I don't know. That sounded like a hybrid. Maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. Maybe this is all Francis, or maybe this is some other guy. Anyway, then Johnny Bones says, a decision fighter. I carried the record for most submissions in the light heavyweight division for many years, my friend. You are what we call a one-trick pony, Francis. Every champion I've ever faced punched hard. I see right through you. Okay. Hang on, let me finish. Okay, then Jon Jones says, I would rather be a decision fighter than a last for 2 rounds fighter. Honestly, Francis, I really respect you and your story. I really don't feel the need to have to crush you in a verbal battle to do what I've done to everyone since 2011. I'm just telling you, Francis, if you want to start this internet talk, make sure you keep it up. Most people talk shit with me, go quiet after a while. Everyone's going to be the first to smash Jon Jones. Very popular theme. I like it. This is exactly what Jon Jones should be doing. Exactly what Jon Jones should be doing, and exactly what Francis should be doing, because both of them want the same thing. Now, let me see this. Let me just respond to this one thing that Jon Jones said. Now, obviously, like we said, this is hype. They're trying to make this fight happen correctly. Jon Jones is one of the most underrated fight promoters there is. Now, again, I think when it came to like recent guys like, you know, Thiago Santos, you know, and Dominic Reyes, he's literally like, okay, I guess just I'll fight these guys for the title, you know. And there's no, but like he was simultaneously hyping fights with Izzy, still fucking with DC, and then now, you know, then trying to go up to heavyweight, all that stuff. So he's very underrated as it relates to promoting fights. But anyway, but let me just respond to this one thing. You are what we call a one-trick pony, Francis. Every champion I have ever faced punched hard. Okay. So, yeah. That's like saying, you know, you're in a demolition derby and you're driving in a car and you've beat everybody, right? Like in the demolition derby. And the person that you're fighting is like, hey, I can drive this thing real fast. And they're in like a fucking armored tank. Every other person is just in regular cars, and you've been doing real well in cars. And then this person comes in with like a straight up military grade, like just came off the battlefield fucking tank. And he's like, I could drive this just as fast as you. And you're like, hey, everyone I've ever gone up against had a car that drove fast. And you're like, it's not really the same thing, dude. Like everyone else you've ever fought punched hard. Okay. Well, did everyone else that you fight like literally shut the lights off anyone with a single like flush punch? Like there's no comparison to Francis punching hard and any other person who's ever, like anyone else ever in the history of the sport, except for maybe Shane Carwin, you know, like maybe Shane Carwin. But yeah, I mean so this is I will say this, Shane Carwin used to be a training partner of Jon Jones 100 years ago, but neither here nor there. Anyway, but yeah, so that's what I've got pretty much. I really hope they make this fight. And again, I don't know. I started filming this and then I got caught up and started over, so I don't know if I said this in this video, but let me just reiterate this if I said it earlier or say it for the first time if I didn't. First round management is going to have a very hard time coming back from this as an MMA management team. And I'm not saying this to be a prick at all. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that I like to talk about most on my channel, which is like the business side and kind of speculating what's going on behind the scenes. And this is just straight up, I'll just tell you right now, this was potentially like a death nail for first round management. And I'll tell you why. Like, they used to have they used to have Jon Jones, they have Jorge Masvidal, they used to have Anthony Pettis. I can't remember their full stable, but I've looked at it. And their main two guys were Jorge Masvidal and Jon Jones. And they just got fired after publicly failing to put together a fight that everyone knows everyone wants. And Jon Jones fired them. Okay, like that. If you're a hot young fighter, would you go to those guys? I mean, seriously, like, would you go to those guys, or would you go? Like or how about, I don't know, Ali Abdelaziz comes up, he goes, hey man, listen, we've got a family over here. We take care of all of our guys. We train together. We live together. If you look, and I'm not just talking about my champions. I'm not just talking about Khabib. I'm not just talking about, Kamaru Usman, Gaethje, and these guys. I'm talking about the whole stable, Triple C, all the guys, all the way down, though. Look at my stable. Those are not the only guys that matter to me. I take care of them. I take care of every other person, and I'll take care of you. And I'll make sure that as you're coming up, you're treated fairly. And then when you become a champion, like we know you're going to, they really take care of you fairly. But nonetheless, we collectively bargain. I'm going to work on behalf of you, but so is the rest of the team. Okay, if we end up having to fight each other, you saw how it was when Khabib and Gaethje fought against each other. Respectful, and everybody makes out. Everybody makes an enormous amount of money, and we have a respectful fight, and we're still a family afterwards. So don't worry about any of that, but we take care of each other here, right? This is a shitty business. It's all cutthroat, but in our family, we take care of each other, and we make sure everyone's going to be all right. So, if you're open to it, we would love to have you on the team. We think you're going to be a future champion. We'd love to help you get there. Versus, right? Listen, I'm going to get you paid, dog. Like, I'm going to get you paid. I'm going to get you paid. I'm going to get you paid. And then it's like, let's see the track record, and you lost Jon Jones. I mean, who would you go with, right? I mean, I'm sure he'll have a better pitch than that, obviously, but like the proof is in the pudding, man. They lost their biggest fighter publicly. It's like Jerry Maguire when he lost Kush on the night before the draft. That's seriously exactly what this is. They first round management lost Kush the night before the draft, just like Jerry Maguire. That is exactly what happened when they lost Jon Jones, right? The whole world knows that this was a huge deal that everyone was pushing to get done. You guys failed to get it done, and then your Kushner fired you, right? So anyway, it's gonna be a tough road for them, but. Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell and tell your friends. Peace.